Good evening, Americans, and welcome to the Ed Show tonight from New York. Ronald Reagan tried to get Muammar Gadhafi. George W. Bush made peace with Muammar Gadhafi. Today, the coalition led by President Barack Obama helped kill the Libyan dictator. It's a major foreign policy victory for the United States, and Republicans just can't stand it. This is the Ed Show. Let's get to work.
Working in Libya with friends and allies, we've demonstrated what collective action can achieve in the 21st century.
A brutal dictator is dead, and Republicans can't let President Obama take credit.
Let's give credit where credit is due. It's the French and the British that led on this fight.
Tonight, former Assistant Defense Secretary Lawrence Korb on the right-wing reaction to the death of Muammar Gadhafi, and New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez on what Gadhafi's death means for families of Lockerbie bombing victims. Dr. Cornel West was arrested during a 99% protest on Sunday. Tonight, he joins me exclusively. And a right-wing operative tries to ambush Vice President Joe Biden, and it doesn't go so well for the guy.
Let's get it straight, guys. Don't screw around with me.
We'll play you the rest of the tape. Good evening, folks. Good to have you with us tonight. 8 months after the early stages of a revolution by the Libyan people, 7 months after NATO forces sent warplanes into Libyan airspace, and 2 months after the fall of Tripoli, Libyan dictator Muammar Gadhafi is dead. We would like to warn you in advance that the following footage may be disturbing to some viewers. It shows Gadhafi captured by rebels, bloodied but still alive. The Libyan prime minister says Gadhafi was found in his hometown of Sirte. He was dragged out of a sewage pipe and was taken through the town in an open-air vehicle for all to see. After a firefight, Gadhafi was killed by a bullet to the head. One of his sons was also killed in the gunfire. News of the dictator's death was greeted with celebrations across the country. He ruled for more than 4 decades. Tonight, Libya is still not under any centralized control. President Barack Obama had been criticized for leading from behind at the onset of the NATO mission to depose Gadhafi. Today, he addressed the Libyan endgame from the Rose Garden.
Today, we can definitively say that the Gadhafi regime has come to an end. But the United States, together with the international community, is committed to the Libyan people. You have won your revolution, and now we will be a partner as you forge a future that provides dignity, freedom, and opportunity.
So in the history of our country, it has been times like this when we have always left politics at the water's edge. Here's the meat of the story. Even in the success of this operation, Republicans can't allow President Obama to receive any credit. For months, prominent Republicans went on television to explain why the president's Libya strategy was doomed to fail. Republican presidential candidate Michelle Bachmann started it out trying to scare the American people into thinking that President Obama was just minutes away from putting boots on the ground in Libya.
We're looking at a full-scale escalation, potentially United States troops on the ground. We were assured by our president that would not happen, and now a call for arms. So this is President Obama's war, even though he's not using that term. We are now engaged in a third Middle Eastern battle.
Bachmann's fellow presidential contender Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, had a host of contradictory positions on Libya. But he was remarkably consistent in blaming President Obama for botching the mission.
If they're serious about protecting civilians, you can't do that from the air. Gadhafi is going to use light infantry. He's going to use his secret police. He's going to be in the cities. He's going to be inside buildings. You're not going to stop that with air power. This is a fundamental mistake.
Fundamental mistake? Well, Republicans in the Senate, they joined in as well. Like Senator Lindsey Graham, a ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee and an Air Force colonel, a military judge. He went so far as to say that the president was giving comfort to our enemies.
This strategy that President Obama's come up with, I think, is not going to defeat a determined enemy. The question is Gadhafi determined? The strategy is confusing to the American people. Only 21% believe President Obama has a clear view of how to handle Libya. It's demoralizing to our allies, particularly people on the ground that we're trying to help, and I think it's encouraging to our enemies. So this strategy is going to lead to a stalemate.
A stalemate. And did I hear in that soundbite Senator Lindsey Graham quote a poll Funny how they're not paying attention to polls right now when it comes to jobs in this country. Let's continue on. And freshman Republican boy wonder Senator Marco Rubio also jumped on the pile during a floor speech back in June.
First, we ceded most of the operation over to our NATO allies, and God bless them for trying, but they do not have the military capability to finish the job.
Yeah, there's an expert right there. So now with Gadhafi eliminated, you would think that these Republicans would eat their words and give the Obama administration some credit that it deserves.
But let's give credit where credit is due. It's the French and the British that led on this fight, and probably even led on the strike that led to Gadhafi's capture to his death.
Now, hang on a second. Back in June, Marco Rubio said the United States made a mistake by working with NATO allies on this operation. Now, with the mission complete, the NATO allies, they just get all the credit. We need a senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee to set the record straight, don't we?
I congratulate the British and the French for their leadership and their effort, and so it's been a significant success, and we should celebrate today.
But the U.S. played a significant role in the NATO operation, not just the British and the French, Senator McCain. The first 2 weeks in particular, U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles and U.S. air refueling capabilities. The Obama administration, from your perspective, deserves a lot of credit for this as well, don't they?
Well, I think they deserve credit. The fact is, if we had declared a no-fly zone early on, we would have never Gadhafi would have fallen at the beginning. The second thing is that if we had used our capabilities, the A-10 and the AC-130, this would have been over a long time ago. But I think the administration deserves credit, but I especially appreciate the leadership of the British and the French in this.
And, of course, way to put words in his mouth, Wolf. No leading question there at all. This is really how you think, isn't it, Senator? You kidding me? John McCain, a man who ran for president on the strength of his military service and his foreign policy credentials, is minimizing the job done by our armed forces in executing this mission. He mentioned nothing about our operational success, nothing about our efficiency, and nothing about the care taken to keep American troops out of harm's way. In fact, the only thing McCain can manage to say about the United States' role in the mission is that, well, the military just didn't do enough. Later in the day, McCain softened his attacks on the president and called the mission a success for the Obama administration. That was interview number 3. Well, maybe someone told Senator McCain how badly he was disrespecting the military to score political points. Or maybe someone reminded him about his recent record and visit to Libya. You see, in August of 2009, it was John McCain, along with Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Joe Lieberman. They met with the guy who got killed today, Muammar Gadhafi, according to a diplomatic cable released by WikiLeaks. The senators pledged support and military hardware to this dictator, as well as public relations advice on the transfer of the Lockerbie bomber. McCain wasn't shy about meeting with a man who slaughtered his own people and is suspected of plotting the deaths of hundreds of Americans. In fact, he told the world about it on Twitter that very evening. Late evening with Colonel Gadhafi at his ranch in Libya. Interesting meeting with an interesting man. So, on a day when the world can see the vindication of President Obama's foreign policy doctrine, Republicans are still looking for ways to downplay and discredit the administration's success. Let me play to your common sense tonight, if I may, you wonderful viewers out there. You mean to tell me that 2 veteran senators, McCain and Lindsey Graham, and a guy who used to be Speaker of the House who wants to be president, and a congresswoman who can't stay away from television cameras, also running for president, and a brand new attack dog for the Republicans, Marco Rubio, they just all happen to be on the same page. They all just happen to be military experts and say, you know, President Obama is absolutely doing the wrong thing here. No. This isn't about military critique. This is all about getting President Obama into the minds of the American people that he is incompetent, doesn't have a plan, can't lead, and can't make those executive decisions. How many more terrorists does President Obama have to take down? How many more dictators does he have to depose with the help of NATO before the Republicans will give him any credit at all without any political calculation involved? This is another reason why those protesters are out in the streets in this country. It is the divide. Bay of Pigs. Did you hear any Republicans really working over President Kennedy way back when, or were we all on the same page then? And there's one more thing I want to point out tonight. Now, the last crowd that used to be in charge of the fort, they used to take us into wars, cost us trillions of dollars and a bunch of lives. Vice President Joe Biden reminded us of how this mission was done today.
The people of Libya have gotten rid of a dictator of 40 years who I personally knew. This is one tough, not so nice guy. And guess what? They got a chance now. But what happened? In this case, America spent $2 billion total and didn't lose a single life.
Which plan do you want to work with? Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question. Will Republicans ever give President Obama any credit for anything? Text A for yes, text B for no to 622-639. We invite you to go to our blog at ed.msnbc.com, and we'll bring you the results later on in the program. Joining me now is Lawrence Korb, Senior Fellow, Center for American Progress, and former Assistant Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan. Mr. Korb, good to have you with us tonight. Is this
nice to be with you?
You bet. Is this a new blueprint for American foreign policy? And is this a new way of doing it all along? What do you think?
Well, I think the Republicans cannot admit that the Democrats know how to conduct foreign policy, because traditionally that's been their ace card that they play in the election. And the fact is, this is the latest in President Obama's triumphs. He got bin Laden, he got al-Awlaki, and now he got Gadhafi with minimal expenditure of funds and no loss of American lives, compared to the fact that, they went into Iraq under false pretenses, spent $2 to $3 trillion, had close to 5,000 Americans killed, 50,000 wounded, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis killed. And this just galls them that Obama has figured out the right way in which to approach these problems.
So we've got a bunch of terrorists who have been killed. We've got Osama bin Laden gone, 4 senior al-Qaeda leaders are gone, and now Gadhafi. How can Republicans question the president's national security credentials? And furthermore, you've got Senators McCain, Graham, and Lieberman had a friendly meeting with Gadhafi 2 years ago. How can they criticize the president with any credibility at all, in your opinion?
Well, they should have no credibility, but what they're saying is, well, he could have done it better. I mean, and no matter what you do, I think if Obama cured cancer, they would say, well, you should have got it, done a couple of years ago. I mean, it just galls them when Obama, showed how you could work with the rest of the world, you could get it done and improve your image in the Arab and Muslim world, which was really undermined by the way we went into Iraq and how ham-handedly we did it and under false pretenses. And they forget, here the Arab League asked us to go, the UN approved it, our allies stepped up. I mean, this whole idea that these free riders, all these threats we talk about, are not just threats to the United States, they're threats to all of our friends and allies, and they should pay their fair share.
Here's something else Florida Senator Marco Rubio said today on the floor. Here it is.
I criticize the president he did the right things. He just took too long to do it and didn't do enough of it. And let me tell you the consequences of that. There are thousands of shoulder-fired rockets that are now missing. You've got all 30-some-odd armed militias that have formed. You have a country that's been significantly eroded and has to be rebuilt.
That was on the floor of Fox News. How big is the concern over these loose weapons?
Well, obviously it's a concern, but the fact of the matter is that if the United States had, done all the bombing itself, it wouldn't have changed anything.